Welcome back to One on One with Ivan Thomas. I'm your amazing host, but today is not about me. It's about this amazing event that we teamed up with the Franklin Institute and Christiana Care GEI about building trust in communities. Um, so I just want to hop right into it right now. I'm super excited. The event is May 13th at 7 o'clock here on DETV. We'll be airing it in Philly and all our social media channels. It's going to be amazing. But the awesome host is Chief Bioscientist Jayatri Das that's here, and she's going to tell us all the information we need to know about this amazing event, and you don't want to miss it. Dr. Jayatri, how are you today?
Good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Ivan.
Oh, thanks for being here. You're a bioscientist. Let's start there.
Yes. All right.
At the Franklin Institute. Let's start. What made you want to be a scientist?
I think just seeing the world around me, whether it's looking at plants growing or, bugs crawling around or, how our health actually interacts with all of that. We're all part of this world.
Right.
And I've always just been fascinated by, where does it all come from and how does it all work together?
Right.
And, science at its best
Right.
is a way of trying to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And I know, because, when you think of scientists, right, you're thinking of a dorky, pocket protector, glasses, but you're like the millennial scientist. Like, and I know you inspire a lot. I know you've seen a lot throughout, your time, especially being a chief bioscientist. I know you've seen a lot, especially when it comes to in the community about health inequities and just racial inequities, all type of inequities. But right now is the time that we're in where we need to build trust, and especially in the Black and brown and underserved communities. Right. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that panel discussion and what we hope to, which you guys, Christiana Care and the Franklin Institute and DTV hope to fulfill on May 13th.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ivan, right? We're in the world that we're living in right now with COVID has really just brought into focus a lot of these inequities that have been going on for a long time. And there are a lot of challenges out there. And, where we're focusing on is just a piece of the puzzle,
right,
but a really important one. And so what we're going to be discussing specifically is how we can better increase involvement from all communities in medical research and clinical trials. And specifically, the goal of that is to bring the benefits of science and medicine to everybody, but to really respect all of the viewpoints and be very inclusive and thoughtful about how to bring everybody along together.
That sounds like a challenge in itself, because I would be remiss not even to mention, especially when it comes to Black and brown people, the Tuskegee experiments, right, and the syphilis experiments and all these other experiments that were forced upon us, and right, now we're many years later. Vaccine come out, this comes out, I know Christiana Care is working on, sickle cell and CRISPR, and that isn't just an amazing part on itself. And just getting us to say, okay, we're in, right, it's and a lot of people in the community saying things have changed, and where do we go from here? So I know on May 13th, again, we have you have a great panelists that's going to be there to talk about these inequities and talking about the clinical trials. Who do we have with that? Who are who is your panel consist of with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, because I think that'll help everybody understand all of the different perspectives that we're bringing together. So you mentioned that this is a partnership with the Gene Editing Institute at Christiana Care. And they're a great place to start because they're one of the biggest community health systems in the country.
Yeah.
That really serve all areas of Delaware. But they're also doing some really interesting cutting edge research around emerging science, like gene editing for diseases like sickle cell and cancer, where we have an opportunity to bring new medical treatments that will save people's lives to our community. But we need to work with our community.
Yeah.
And so having them come to the table ready to listen and hear what ideas people have, what concerns people have, I think this is a new place to start the conversation from that we haven't had before.
Yeah.
But of course, having that, kind of scientific perspective never stands alone.
Right.
So we're also lucky to be joined by Jackie Crawford, who is a nurse at CCHS, and she's a Black woman who's been a participant in clinical trials for breast cancer. And so she brings her own personal experience in helping us understand, what were her questions, what were her concerns, what were the decisions that she made in choosing to be part of this, to help us think about how do we work together to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. And then, of course, there's the practical side of it too.
Right.
So there are lots of questions about, what kind of strategies might work and what are the right strategies to put into place that are fair to everybody.
Right.
And so our other two guests kind of represent that aspect of things. So Dr. Anya Harry is the Director of Clinical Trials Diversity at the pharma company GSK. And so, she's in charge of really looking at, putting this into practice at a global level with new, trials for new drugs and things. And she's a Black woman herself. So she brings both that scientific expertise as well as her personal experience. And then finally, we have Holly Fernandez Lynch, who is an ethicist.
Wow.
So she really thinks about these ideas of justice and fairness, and how do we involve people in a way that respects people's dignity and makes sure that we prioritize helping people without taking advantage of them.
Wow. That you sound like you got every base covered on this one.
Well, not entirely, because the voice that we also want to include is in this conversation is the voice of the community.
Wow.
And so we have a couple of things in place to hear from folks out there who are listening today and are interested in this, to help us out and tell us what you think in advance of that event, so that we can hear what you have to say and reflect on that as we think about the way forward.
So what she's saying is, when we go live that evening, you will be able to put your questions in the chat, and we can communicate back and forth with the community on that. And I think that's a great way to start.
Yes, so that's a really important part of the event.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to start, because the community definitely, they've been left out for years, but this is a great time that, Christiana Care, the gene editing, the Franklin Institute, and with us saying, hey, look, let's really make a change. Let's start. But we have the I don't mean to say, but we have the subject matter experts. We have not just doctors, but doctors that's been involved in a clinical trial to tell you her experience. And we have someone from, like you said, the justice part of it, and the farm part of it. I think that's a great way to start. And again, that's May 13th at 7 p.m. here on DETV. Why now?
We've actually been thinking about this for a long time. In fact, we started talking to the Gene Editing Institute, back before COVID was a thing.
Right.
So this is a problem that's been kind of evolving over the years. I think, the Tuskegee study is the one that kind of everybody hears about.
Yeah.
But it's a problem that's, kind of come into play in some more subtle ways too, where, another famous example is, asthma. When you think about asthma, Black kids and, kids of Latino descent suffer from asthma more than other kids in this country.
Right.
And the most popular treatment for asthma is a drug called albuterol. Every kid who has asthma has that inhaler, right?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't until just a couple of years ago that scientists involved more Black and brown kids in studying how effective those inhalers were, and realized that because of just genetic variation in the population, that drug doesn't work as well for Black kids and kids from Puerto Rican ancestry.
Wow.
And because the original studies had been done on mostly white kids, people just assumed that if it works on these kids, it must work for every kid.
Wow.
And what we have a better understanding of today is that it's not race. Like, race isn't biological, but we all have different genetics. We all live in different environments. We have different access to healthcare, and those factors influence our health. And if we don't think about that and we're not intentional about including people from all of those different, backgrounds in our medical studies, we can't be confident that what we think is helping people actually works.
You touched on so much there, and I think right now what I want to do is get more in the personal side of the things that you've seen, and what do you think on how things can change it to be even better. You mentioned asthma. What else is out there that that affects Black and brown and Latino kids that is not the same for white kids?
Another story that's starting to get a lot more attention is infant mortality.
Yes.
How healthy babies are.
Yes.
And their moms.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. There's a group here that's talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's we're talking about from the very beginning. You see this, and in the U.S., Black babies have 3 times higher mortality rates than white babies do, and that's not about their biology, right? It's about how we care for them, the systems that we have in place, and this then connects to the bigger picture too of who is involved in science and medicine to address these issues.
Right.
And we see that Black moms and babies who are treated by Black doctors have better outcomes.
Why is that?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
But because these like understanding this is really new. And that's why we have to have these conversations to start identifying these problems and starting to investigate what the causes are and what the solutions are.
Right.
But there have been historical biases about, for instance, like the perception of pain among Black folks.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That there again, this comes from just generational racism.
Yeah.
That, even if it's not explicit today, it's kind of built into the system. Right? So we need to dig into that.
Right. Okay. I'm with you.
And, and that for me, I'm kind of at this intersection of science and education, being at the Franklin Institute. And for us, like, it's not only, calling attention and bringing together people to find solutions on the health side, but it's also how do we get more Black and brown kids interested and supported in science so that we have more diverse doctors who are thinking from different perspectives who can help everybody.
Yeah, talking to Dr. Eric over at Christianity Care, that was his thing, to get more Black and brown doctors, scientists involved in sickle cell research. So I totally get it. Wow, this is awesome. Again, May 13th, 7:00 here at DETV. Let's talk about the survey.
Okay, so before we have this conversation on the 13th, we want to know what's on everybody's mind. So we have a survey online right now that I hope everybody who's listening will think about going to this website and filling it out. And it's just a short survey. It'll take you, maybe 5-10 minutes to tell us what you think about medical research. What's been your experience with it? We've talked to folks who have been involved and have had great experiences. And then on the other side of the spectrum, people who have been mistreated or people who have just had really negative experiences and everything in between. We know there's a real spectrum. And so we want to hear from folks, fill out this survey, tell us what you think, if you've ever been involved in a clinical trial, and what are some of the things on your mind about whether or not you'd be interested in participating in a clinical trial to help your community. Because one thing that, I think people, may not necessarily know about is like being part of medical research in a clinical trial is really something you do for your community. Because the way that research works is that you don't necessarily know that you are guaranteed a personal benefit.
Right.
And so anybody who decides to do this is taking a risk for the greater good.
Right.
And that involves a lot of, really hard decisions.
Yeah.
My dad's been, recruited to be in a clinical trial that he declined because there were side effects that he didn't feel comfortable with.
Right.
But my sister was also involved in one of the clinical trials for one of the COVID vaccines.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So it's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
And, we want to hear about what factors, you think might be important to you if you were to be invited to participate.
And that's what you mentioned. Again, it's so much to unpack here, and I wish we had more time. I want to talk about the benefits. You said it helps the community. What other benefits are out there for people to get involved in clinical trials?
So there's always the chance
Right.
that whatever treatment that you're helping to test is going to help you.
Right.
But that's not something that you know ahead of time.
Right.
Right, because there's always a comparison, to the current standard of care.
Yeah. Oof, jeez. Right.
Right. So, long story short, it turned out my sister was actually in the placebo, side of the study. So when she was testing the vaccine, she didn't actually get the vaccine.
Right. Oh, wow. Yeah.
So you don't do it knowing that there's something in it for you.
Right.
Right. You do it because you're thinking about the big picture.
Right.
How can me being part of this help people in the future, help my community?
Right.
And that, inherently means that it has to be a community effort.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it cannot be the case that you're doing it because your doctor tells you to do it.
Right.
Right? It's something that, you need to do for yourself and as a service for science. And so this is where we see, this relationship and trust being really important, is that we need to earn that trust as scientists.
Right.
We can't expect it.
But how do you do that? How do you earn the trust? That's why we're here.
Yes.
Earning the trust, and eliminating, disparities in clinical trials and beyond.
Right.
And beyond.
Right. That sounds like such a big problem. Right?
Yeah.
But we believe, and it's our hope, that it starts with conversations. So that brings me to the second in our series of discussions here. So we're also hosting a virtual community discussion on May 6th. And we'll have that information for everybody as well.
Okay.
And that's a place where we want to bring folks from the community together with doctors and scientists from Christiana Care to just have conversations.
I think it's so just amazing, that way back when 200-300 years ago, they were just snatching black and brown folks, saying, come on, and then just making it happen. To now that we're here today saying, you know what, we realized a lot of stuff was messed up.
Yes.
Let's talk about it, because we're on a different page, white, black, brown. And I think just seeing how being close to the Franklin Institute and gene editing over at Christiana Care, how people really, really care. And they really, like you said, want to talk about it. Let's talk about it before we move any further. And I think that's just an amazing, amazing feat on your part and on Christiana Care's part. So geez. Call me if you need me for a clinical trial. I'm all the way in.
Right. There's a lot to think about, but at the Franklin Institute, we know that we've always been a place where people come together to have fun with science.
Yeah.
Right. Like everybody loves talking about their first time going through the giant heart.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Boo, 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 boo.
But we hope that that's not where it stops.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That this is a place for all of us to come together and think about why science matters.
Yeah.
I think we're all realizing that more than ever before. But also how science has a responsibility to our society, and how do we work together to really make that better.
I think that's the biggest thing. How do we work together? And just to touch on the Franklin Institute, there is so much more to the Franklin Institute than that giant heart.
It's a great place to start. I love it, and I walk through it all the time.
Awesome.
But we hope that's just the beginning.
Oh, gosh, I love it. Can you come back and talk some more about other things that's going on?
Absolutely.
I would love it. You got DETV's official Dr. Jayatri Das is here May 6th, and you can tell the camera, look at your camera, and tell them May 6th what's going on, and May 13th.
So on May 6th, we're having a virtual community forum, bringing together everybody from the community with doctors and researchers from Christiana Care to brainstorm solutions to some of these problems that we can tackle here locally. And we're structuring the conversation so that everybody's on the same page. We want to value everybody's opinion and think about the experiences right here in Delaware that can help us kind of tackle this big problem in a very local way. And then on May 13th, we'll have a discussion here on DETV where we reflect on some of the ideas that came out of that discussion on the 6th and think about what's the right way, what's the fair way, and what's a very practical way for moving forward.
Doc, thank you again. There you have it from DE's official Dr. Jayatri. That's right, Dennis. I did it. Doctor, official, DETV. Make sure you tune in. For more information, click the link and you can see the flyer for May 6th and May 13th. I'm super excited, Doc. This is going to be a great start for healing the community and healing and bringing back science. And I think that you guys at the I know that you guys at the Franklin, guys and women at the Franklin Institute are doing an amazing job, and especially guys and women over at Christiana Care. I thank you again for what you do and how you do it. So really appreciate you, Doc.
Thanks so much for having me. It's these kinds of partnerships, bringing folks together, that I think we can make a better world.
Let's make a better world. I'm in.
All right, let's do
Wonder
it.
Twin powers activate. This is your main man, Ivan Thomas, here on One on One, and you've seen it here first. So make sure you tune in on May 13th, 7 p.m. across all social media platforms and airing in Philadelphia as well. All right, I'll see you when I see you on the other side. Take care of yourself. Hug a stranger, love yourself, and be good to the world.